Hi, welcome to Business Link, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce's podcast. Talk about exciting things that are going on in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Jason Ball, President and CEO of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, here in our offices in the AOI podcast studio, and deeply honored to have our guest here today, the new president of the University of Nebraska system, Dr. Jeffrey Gold. Dr. Gold, welcome to the AOI podcast studio at the Chamber.
Well, thanks, Jason. It's a lot of fun to be here, and I look forward to our discussion.
Yeah. So you were named the 9th president of the University of Nebraska this April, and then officially began your role on July 1st. And I was honored to be at your formal installment ceremony in the Nebraska Capitol this September. And so it's been a really busy year for you. So in the brief moments since you've been announced and took on the role and post-formal installment, I've seen you in a lot of places. You've been really great to work with here. Tell me, what did you focus on as you began the work to get your arms around a very big role in this state?
Well, Jason, I have lived and worked in Nebraska since January of 2014. And so I am a very proud Nebraskan by choice. But the changes that occurred after I was named back in April and when officially took over the role on July 1st has been really spent crisscrossing the state, listening to people in small and large communities, farming and ranching communities, business communities, in our schools, in our healthcare systems, etc., and asking them simply the question of what is their expectation for the University of Nebraska system? How can we do better? What should we do more of, less of? What should we stop doing? What should we be thinking about for the future? And I challenge them to think about 2030 as a target horizon year. I think planning far beyond that is just too much uncertainty, and yet that would give us a goal. And I've learned so much from listening to Nebraskans, literally standing on feedlots and cow-calf facilities, row crops, harvesting corn, and actually recently went up to a dairy production facility because we've been doing a lot of work on high-path flu and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But the long and the short of it is the respect, the admiration, the gratitude for the breadth and depth of the University of Nebraska system writ large is huge across the state. I'm not surprised by that at all, and nor am I surprised about the fact that they have great expectations for the future, and they want us to think big, to have bold, audacious goals, and to execute on those goals. And by the way, win a few more football games if we can do that.
Well, we're on our way, and I'm optimistic for some more good news in that respect too. And so, as you've listened to that feedback and taken on the role, do you have a sense of what your priorities are going to be as president of the system?
Well, for sure. We've talked a lot about our major role in the area of education and training, and making sure that we are not only affordable and accessible, but what I would call high value, meaning the educational programs that we provide to Nebraskans are such that that when those want a job, that they're highly sought after for those positions, then they're well prepared, but also that the future Nebraskans will have a fulfilled and fulfilling life. And there's a lot more to higher education than what happens in the classroom or on 6 Saturday afternoons a year. There's a whole experience that generation will have, and that is what's going to create the future citizens of our state. And by the way, when I talk about our state, I really mean as an exemplar to what can be done for the rest of the country. Yeah. We're very focused on research, scientific discovery, creative activity, and commercialization thereof, and that has a lot to do with business development. We have tremendous programs in digital agriculture, tremendous programs in healthcare, tremendous programs in engineering and the biological sciences and the hard sciences and physics, architecture, etc. And that research is well funded by federal competitive research grants. We'd like to continue to grow that. But we also need to be able to commercialize that intellectual property into startup companies. Hopefully that will stay here. But if not, into license agreements and to get it out. I like to say that research is never done until a human being's life has been improved.
Yeah, yeah. And by the by, I used to work with what was the Office of Technology Development, and then became New Tech Ventures, and
Yeah, sure.
very formative as an intern in my early career. And so that's such
Well,
a
if you
fun
ever need a
area.
job, let me know.
I I think you have some better folks working there now than you're going to get out of me. But let's talk. You mentioned economic development, and you've been doing such a great job of being out and conversing with people, learning from their perspectives. I'm interested to know specifically how have you engaged with the business community in terms of how the university can be an asset and help them grow and be successful, help the economy grow and be successful.
So there are two sides to that equation, Jason. At least maybe there are more, but
Mhm.
I think of it as one is just listening to individuals and groups from the business community, and
Yeah.
whether, as you may recall, I had an opportunity to visit with the Lincoln Chamber. I've
Mhm.
spent time, of course, with the Omaha Chamber and the
Yeah.
Nebraska Chamber. I actually sit on the executive committee of the Greater Omaha Chamber and have for
Mhm.
many years.
Mhm.
And that is because when we're doing business development work, a very important part of that is where does higher education fit into that? Where does workforce development fit into
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
And frankly, where does healthcare fit into that?
Yeah.
As I crisscross the state as the former chancellor for 10 years of the Med Center,
Mhm.
I go to these small farming and ranching communities. If they don't have healthcare, they don't have economic prosperity
Yeah.
because they can't
Yeah.
recruit and retain talent. The other part of the equation is what I was referring to a few minutes ago, is we have a large group of very gifted research scientists who are developing new techniques. They're developing new drugs and medications and diagnostic testing in healthcare. They do a lot of work in crop development and in livestock development work and yield and productivity in the ag sector, a tremendous amount of work in high energy laser physics, for instance, in the College of Engineering. And there are large companies and small companies across the country that are looking for that talent and that technology. And our job is to try to make those connections and, again, turn those ideas into things that improve the human condition.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been able to talk a little bit about a topic that comes up a whole lot, and that's AAU membership, the American Association of Universities. And that's been identified, I think, in previous conversations from other university leadership and other state leadership as
Sure.
something we see as a core long term goal. How, how do you position NU to be reinvited to that group? Because as I understand it, it's not just filling out an application form and saying, "Hey, we're interested in that."
That
Right?
is correct. There
Yeah.
is no application form. It's
Yeah.
by invitation only,
Yeah.
and it is purely based upon academic excellence.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I have had the opportunity to meet several times with the leadership of the AAU, once by Zoom, another time actually in her offices in Washington, D.C., to test the question of feasibility. That is to say, has there ever been an institution that was dismissed after a long term membership? As you may know, the
Mm.
University of Nebraska Lincoln campus was a founding member of
Mm.
the AAU, and then in
Mm.
2011 separated paths. And so I've been reassured that yes, it is possible, but I've also been told that it's a 10-year process. Of course, my
Oh
response to
wow.
that is 10 years is too slow. We've got to accelerate that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best we can. And I've been reminded very tactfully that it's up to them and not up to us as to what that process will look like. But the point being is that it is exactly the same goals we have around academic excellence.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about research prominence, competitive research grants, awards and recognition of our faculty, number
Mm-hmm.
of doctoral degrees that we grant, the number of citations, book chapters, and publications.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing with enrollment and retention of our students? What are our graduation rates? And particularly, what are our graduation rates for Pell eligible students, which is code for what are we doing for social mobility
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
the population? And these are all things that are of very, very high strategic importance to the university. And frankly, we started off today talking about, what does Nebraska expect of the university? That's exactly what Nebraska expects of the university.
Yeah.
High value, accessible education, great research productivity that gets commercialized effectively, They want to know that, think about it. If you or I are a parent or a grandparent of a student that's looking at college, I really care what the graduation rates are,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the fact that there'll be people and programs in place to inspire the next generation, get their degrees completed and get them on to whether it's another higher level degree, or whether it's a workforce, or whether it's just having a fulfilled and fulfilling life here in Nebraska.
Yeah, yeah. What I hear in that answer too is just really great. The things we were going to do anyway are going to prepare us down the road for a conversation with the
They have to
AAU.
be.
Yeah,
These are the things that great universities focus on,
yeah.
have focused on traditionally. Now, how we do it, that is really going to be the most interesting part of the discussion,
Hmm.
because the systems that existed, 20 years ago, to produce academic excellence probably are not going to be vibrant today.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
areas of research that are growing, think all the media coverage and all the discussion about generative AI. I mean, generative AI is a tool in the toolbox. It's not going to replace
Yeah,
what we're doing. But the real question is going to be, how are we going to advantage that tool among many others? So we have established a generative AI working group across all of our campuses to ask the question about, what are we going to do in our educational programs? What are we going to
yeah.
do in our research programs? I mean, we're actually the 14th university system in the country to actually develop a major, an undergraduate major in generative artificial intelligence,
Hmm. Hmm.
because there's a demand signal for that. And so we have to be not responsive, but we have to be proactive
Yeah,
to what the demand signals are going to be sure that we produce the workforce that our employers are going to need. Because I guarantee you, I don't care whether you're in the feedlot business, or whether you're in energy production, or whether you're in healthcare, or anything and everything in between. You're going to want to know how Gen AI is
hmm,
going to impact your business, and how you're going to use it to increase productivity and decrease cost.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the university has got a major role in producing that workforce.
Well, that's an exciting area. Let's one more question
Sure.
related to this. We've talked whether it's just where we want to go to be excellent, or whether it's a conversation about how we get a relationship back with the AAU. Research is a central focus of that, right? And it's all the competitive dollars and grants and,
Yep.
and publishing that comes along with that. How does a university system compete for top research talent?
Well, you're exactly right that the various phases of recognition by the AAU are almost like gateways. That is to say, if you don't pass through phase one, they don't care about phase two. And if you don't pass through phase two, they don't care about phase three.
Yeah.
And the elements that are in phase one, excuse me, are uh, competitive research grants and contracts, recognition of your faculty
Mm.
for excellence, which
Mm.
is typically based around not just educational excellence, but research excellence, publication citations, which of course is important, and doctoral degrees that are granted. And the number of doctoral degrees is almost directly proportional to your research productivity,
Mm.
because it's the grants and contracts, the research grants and contracts that support the doctoral, meaning the PhD students that you're engaging. So, there are many different ways of doing it, but the important ways to me are identifying our areas of excellence
Mm.
and investing in those, meaning hiring more faculty, making sure that we have world-class facilities. A really good example of that would be the new Kiewit Engineering Building. I
Yeah.
mean, that is, as fine an institution as any place in the country or the world, and it should be a magnet for recruitment of highly talented faculty. Build on areas where we already have established excellence, where there's a clear demand signal for the future. And then I'll tell you, the single highest predictor of being a highly successful research grant deriving scientist next week is having been a highly successful research grant deriving scientist last week.
Yeah.
And so we are now creating a system by which, when we hire somebody specifically in the research areas,
Hmm.
we're looking for their history of not only grant productivity,
Mm.
but very importantly for economic development, commercialization, and tech transfer.
Love it.
Because
Yeah.
if you've done commercialization and tech transfer, I've probably, I don't know, I lost track, but at least 10 companies that I've been involved with a startup
Yeah.
of. We were recently talking about one of the software as a service
Yeah.
companies, but in multiple different areas. If you've had that experience, you understand, what the process is to protect intellectual property, how that results in interacting with pre-seed and seed venture capital and private equity, what it means to go through a regulatory process, particularly in my little world where you're talking about pharmaceuticals and medical devices. If you don't understand the FDA process of going through either a new pharmaceutical, small molecules, large molecules
Yeah.
technology, you're really at a major disadvantage.
Yeah.
So hiring people who have had that experience gives us a big heads up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, President Gold, thank you so much for the interactions that we've had, that you've had with our leadership and our members. We've loved working with you, and you've got a great reputation throughout the entire state, I know. I'll just end by saying, here at the Lincoln Chamber, our business community is fully supportive of you. We know if you and your team are successful in getting to where you want to go, that's going to mean good things for the state and everybody in it.
When I accepted this position last spring, I was incredibly optimistic about the future of the university, all of our campuses, and of course about the future of the state. And I will tell you that over the last months, my first 100 days or so in this job,
Yeah.
my optimism just continues to grow. The best is unquestionably yet to come.
Well, on that exciting note, we're going to end this episode of Business Link. This has been Jason Ball with the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and of course, President Gold of the University of Nebraska System in the AOI podcast studio at the Lincoln Chamber. You can see past episodes of this show at lcoc.com on our news webpage, and we will see you next time. Thank you.